Welcome to where the screen door slams and the coffee mug hits the table. You're listening to The Family Balancing Act with me, Maureen Huntley, mom, grandmother, and board-certified holistic and functional medicine health coach. Each episode will explore the realities of your day-to-day family life in this modern era of nonstop texts, memes, and technology. After all, how do we keep ourselves sane and our family healthy? I'll have amazing guests and thought-provoking discussions, and we'll take a holistic look at family health, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual. Whether it's a micro perspective of family involving healthy snacks, teenagers with an attitude, stressed out husbands, partners, adult children, potty training, elder care, grandchildren, college prep, or a macro perspective of world events, including flu, earthquakes, the brainwashing media, finances, and oh, so much more. We'll find a way together. So take a deep breath, exhale, and know that you're not alone. Bring on the Family Balancing Act. Welcome to the Family Balancing Act, where restoring the heart and art of motherhood starts with one conversation at a time. I'm Maureen Huntley, your host, board-certified integrative, holistic, and functional medicine health coach, emotional freedom technique practitioner, mom, grandmother, wife, and CEO of my family's home operations. So how's your Family Balancing Act going? If you're in charge of keeping all the spinning plates and all the balls in the air, God bless you. It's nothing short of a miracle at times. Well, some days flow a little better than others. And if you're like 99.999999% of those who do it all, and you know who you are, you also know it's not possible to do it all. Well, add in your fur family, and you've got joy, unconditional love, and stress, all bundled into your Family Balancing Act, even with or without the husband, children, grandparents, and friends. Our pets are a gift from God, but like everyone else in the family, they need you, and you need them. Okay, so maybe they don't talk back to you, although I challenge that. You can have them out of the room, or you can keep them in a kennel, but they feel the separation. How big is your heart? Big, I would bet. Family, fur family, as defined by urbandictionary.com, are fur pets that you consider family. Your furry family members, dogs, cats, bunnies, ferrets, chickens, as opposed to your human family members. I didn't know that was a word, family. Did you? Well, my family always had a pet, or pets actually, and it's so rewarding. It's this joy-filled love, total love journey, but it's not always been easy, especially when it comes to the goodbyes. When our pets have passed, either on their own or because their life had become so painful, we had to find a way to help them pass. It was so heart-wrenching. Our children, my husband, and I have cried our eyes out during the goodbye, and it would be a long goodbye sometimes, and for days, months, and sometimes years as we reflect back on the beautiful memories we had. Our fur family is part of our family and is family. I've seen my children crying harder, actually, for the beloved pet than they did for an older relatives. We are just unconditionally loved by our pets. just being in their presence can lift us up and hold our hearts, and especially children. Children feel it. Humans can stand to learn so much more from their fur friends. So today, we'll be doing a deep diving into the balancing act and the balancing the fur family, or rather the family, and all that comes with it. So come on in, pull up a chair, grab a tea, coffee, water, or maybe even a green juice, because we have a lot to talk about today with my returning guest. Yep, Glenys Eldred, who continues to grow her fur family. We're going to hear all about it. Glenys is a Taoist priest, healer, creator of Glenys Eldred Healing Hearts and Energy, Renegade Zen, and a sustainability expert. I'm so excited to have Glenys here once again, and I can't wait to hear all that you have to say, Glenys. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hello, Mo. Well, thanks for having me back. This is a very exciting topic. Very exciting.
I know, certainly for you, for all, because you grew up having loads of pets. And
I did. My dad was a
connection.
veterinarian. Yeah, my dad was a veterinarian. So we have had an array of odd animals. A lot of them came to us as that people abandoned them at his hospital. They just couldn't pay the bill and they were just walked away, which I thought was kind of odd. And so I've gotten this sort of mixed bag of brokenness that turned into full-on loving, just unbelievable personalities. And all of us all remember them as if they were members of the household, always.
Oh, wow. Did you have a particular one when you were a child that you were very close to, one of your pets?
Yes, JD came. He was a golden retriever and he was like this award-winning bloodline, but he had a heart murmur. Apparently the worst heart murmur that University of Pennsylvania had ever heard, and they wanted to record it for their students. And my dad decided to keep him. And so he had a lot of like health issues, but because he was in the care of a veterinarian 24/7, we were able to limp him along till he was like 17. I mean, he lived longer than most dogs do now.
I've had two. I'm like, I've had two golden retrievers we have, and I absolutely love them. They just give heavy duty love nonstop. But both of them passed by the time they were 12, like give or take a week. It was almost to the exact date of their birth. So 17, that's incredible.
Yeah, and he had unbelievable. Thank God he was with us because his hair all fell out. He had a thyroid problem. He had a heart murmur, so he couldn't run very far. And he smelled bad. I mean, like he needed to have a medicated bath almost every day. So he was super clean and he was a character, a total character. And I used to take him on dates with me when I was in high school, because I couldn't leave him at home because I had to walk him. It was my dad. He was like my hall monitor. He stayed on the floor when I was out of the house, and if I came home, the door as I was opening it, he was sliding on the floor, and then he was like, "Oh, now you're home. Now we can go to bed." He was unbelievable. Ride on the front seat before seat belts. That's how old I am. Ride on the seat, and if you flipped off, he'd held a grudge for days. If you stopped fast and he fell off the seat, he'd hold a grudge for days. He was a character, total character. And he was like that whiskey color, not the creamy, lovely golden retriever color. And that's when they crossbred them many years back, with bloodhounds. So he had like all this extra skin. And he was totally bizarre looking, especially when he was naked because his hair fell
without his fur. And golden retrievers have a ton of hair. I mean, it just goes
everywhere.
You could pack a new pillow every week.
Yeah. Yep. My grandmother knit him, or actually she crocheted him when his hair fell out because we had to balance his thyroid medication. She crocheted him. She said, "Oh, poor thing." And she crocheted him a thing to put on his tail that had like little things on it to look like his tail feathers, because she thought he felt diminished going out, because we lived in Philadelphia, and I have to take him out on a leash with 3 standard poodles and him, and they were all beautiful and, you know, gorgeous, and he's there naked and he's got spots on him because apparently it looks like a Dalmatian underneath when all their hair falls out. And it was embarrassing, but he was a character. So that's
probably
one.
wasn't embarrassed in the least. It's just it's the humans. It's so crazy. So I just think back to all the pets I've had, and then all the pets I've had with, you know, we've had here in my family that my husband and I have created. And there'd be times I'd be like, why do we have this dog? Do we have this cat? Why? But that would be just a brief moment, because they're just full of like unconditional love, and they can settle everybody around them. They have a way of just bringing people into balance. And even when you're having a you know, there's a family discord, the dog gets involved in that, it's over. They don't tolerate that. Or, you know, they might. I remember one animal I had as a child. We had a poodle, a small poodle, like a miniature poodle. And I remember getting my acceptance into college, and I went to pick the notice out of the mailbox. We didn't have internet then. And I pulled the letter out, and I opened it up because it was a thick envelope, which meant that there was like information in there I had to fill out and get back and the whole thing. So I, when you get envelopes for acceptances, college acceptance, you're not always getting the thick envelope at that time. But if you got a thick one, you knew you got in somewhere. And so I got that one, and I opened it up, and I started screaming like at the top of my lungs. That poor dog ran over and like grabbed the back of my shirt, and I like nipped to my back because it was like it was like I was out of character, and she was like, no, this doesn't go on here. And at the same time, I'm like laughing, crying, going, ow, grabbing just hugging, in the end, it was like we were both on the floor laughing and hugging each other. But those moments are ingrained forever. Those special moments with our fur family, our furmilies. Had you ever heard that before? Furmily?
No, that's a new term, but hey, the language seems to be
evolving
expanding all the time. So I just kind of go along. Well, that's a new one to add to my vocabulary. I remember when JD, when we had him, my cousin, we were babysitting my baby cousin, and we put her in my dad's office, which is off our family room at the time. And he was in the family room, and she was crying, and they were like, just let her, she'll settle. It's a different place. She'll settle. And she just didn't. So he got up and he looked over his shoulder. He was always annoyed with us, but he loved us. But he was always like, you people. And he got up and he pushed the door open, went back there. And the next thing you hear is her giggling and laughing. And then he comes out and he's like, see, like all you had to do was just, and we were like, oh my God, it's magical. You're like, why didn't we let him try that an hour ago? But he decided on his own because he listened to it for a while, and he's like, I got to take care of this.
An hour later.
Yeah.
No, right before we went on air, and you were experiencing it with me, I had my daughter's little dog who's like part Chihuahua, and just being completely restless around me. And we both discussed, I'll just leave, it's fine. It's all part of today's show. I'll have the dog. She was so restless, and I could see she was about ready to start like yapping and yapping and yapping. And it would be an hour worth of yapping, and we'd all have a big headache and nobody listened. So I had to exit her out the door, get her out of it. But what was the most unusual pet that you had?
This will have to be between us and your audience.
Oh, okay.
My dad, for my mother's wedding anniversary, bought her an Amish mule. And can I say that actually falls below buying a woman a vacuum cleaner? Can I just say?
I have friends who won vacuum cleaners and they're happy with that. So, but a mule might be kind of a comment on either what they think of the person.
Yeah, I
or
mean, there was a lot of there's a lot
lot of
of
stuff, a lot
baggage.
of digging. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of baggage
Oh,
there. Now, let me
wow.
also say she doesn't ride. It was a draft horse sized mule, so it was huge. We had to order separate, like a special order halter for it. Like you couldn't just go buy one, you couldn't even get it close to it. Her head was like this, her ears on
Enormous.
top of that. She was huge. Her
Enormous.
feet were like pie plates. And she used to pull a plow, and she didn't like men because they were the ones that made her pull the plow, and so she only liked girls. So she would try to kick all the men that would come near her. And my mother could totally walk up to her, but she was a little afraid of her, and she was never getting on her because she never was that kind of athletic person. She was, she was very cultured and into art, antiques and things like that, not a mule. And when people say, what'd you get for your anniversary, it's the silver one or whatever, she's like, my husband gave me a mule. And they're like, really? Why would he do that?
Well,
so
it's creative.
Yeah, so
and he's a vet, so that
yeah,
was sort of
yeah. So she was a character. That mule thought she was the most feminine thing there ever was. She simpered, but she didn't like men, and she would try and sit on them if they came near her, or kick them, which they cow kick. Mules can cow kick, whereas horses can only kick to the back. And he thought he could muscle her, my dad. So he was gonna,
tame her. Yeah.
Because he's used to doing that because he was a veterinarian. And she threw him. He was holding on to the halter, and she flea flicked him. Like, she wound up, she sat down, and he was horizontal, and he went like 30 feet.
Oh my God.
And he tucked and rolled. He was still like young enough to do that. I think at 92 now, he's still alive. I don't know that he could tuck and roll as well as he did then, but I saw it and I was like, holy cow. So she had this like obstreperous streak in her that made her such a character. Like, she used to let all the horses out because she knew how to use we called them finger lips to open gate. She would like when you go to close her in, she would grab the gate with her lips and hold on. It was stronger than me with both hands and my body weight. She was such a character, and our whole family tells stories about her all the time. Like, and we have pictures of her and pictures with her, and like, she is absolutely a beloved character because she was a character.
Which it's really great because as a kid too, I mean, I don't know how old you were when she showed up, but how fun is that?
Oh yeah.
A mule.
I trained her to jump. So I had a jumping mule, which are highly prized.
Jump, right. They don't jump very high.
No, but I trained her to jump. Because I used to ride when I was a kid, and I like to jump. And so I put a saddle on her and we went out in the woods. Only thing is, and I didn't know it right away, is that once she's been over something, in something, along something like a path or like a trail ride or something, she doesn't want to do it again. So now she won't go because she's a mule.
Stubborn.
Yeah, she's stubborn, but she'll go backwards. So I did a lot. My dad used to take her. I'm going to take her for a trail ride. And I was like, okay. And she would go backwards, but she wouldn't go forward. So he did a lot of trail riding his mule backwards. I don't know how because they can see out of the side. And so she would just back up. So you see him going along the ridge, and I'd be going along on my horse forwards. And right behind me was my dad on his mule.
I think that there's something, as you say, deeper with this, in the fact that he gave your mother this gift for an anniversary, and the joke's on him, basically.
Yeah, I mean, he loved that mule. That mule made stories for life. We have so many stories about her.
That's brilliant.
But letting my 5 horses out in the middle of one night, I heard them all run underneath the bedroom window, and I said, the horses are out. And I said, how did they get out? Wait. And I was like, oh, here comes the mule. I could hear her because she like, she was like, yeah. And I was like, oh my God. And she let the horses out. She lifted the gate right off the pins and dropped it. And all the horses jumped over it and ran away. I got them all back, but it was at 3 a.m. It was like, okay, got to get to the barn, got to get the feed. Anyway, my fur family was a muck.
Look, and you still love them. And, look,
Oh.
teenagers, and I know you haven't had teenagers or kids, but it's like, that's a teenager for you. They're running amok. I mean, some are very, very good. But generally you have, my theory is that kids, when they're very little, if they're really well behaved, and they're like just perfect little child, they're going to burst out. At one point, they're going to burst out at some point in their childhood. Or this is what I found with my own kids. And the ones that were a little wild when they were little weren't necessarily, they were a little wild growing up, but not as crazy. So what, with kids and living with animals and taking responsibility, it's not only about kids. When you bring animals into pets into your home, I think that, I know my parents were all like, okay, we're going to get you a dog, but you're going to have to take the dog out and you're going to have to walk the dog and you're going to have to feed the dog. And of course, my mother ended up being the one who did it all. And then I did, we get a dog when my son is 5 years old. We surprised him. He was a gift. She was a gift. The dog was. And, well, you're going to help and the whole bit. Nah, even as he got older, that wasn't, they do a little bit here and there, but it lands on the major home runner person, mom usually.
Yep. Yeah, it does. And when you think you've got it all taken care of and you're doing the best that you can and you're feeding everybody, including the kids and the animals and everybody, for me, Molly, the mule, she was getting out. She was jumping out of the pasture during the day, going and visiting my neighbors, eating their grapes, their gardens, their fresh grass, whatever. And then she would go home on her own and jump back in. So I would go to work and I fed her and I would go to work and I would come home and she was back in the pasture and fed her again and went to bed. And I never knew that she was visiting the neighbors until like a year later.
Did the neighbors say anything?
No, they just said she wouldn't let them bring her back because she didn't like men. And so, and the women were afraid because she's too big. Like, unless you're a horse person, you're not going to walk up to this monstrous thing. Yeah. And she was, being destructive. She was doing mule stuff. And we found that she had bent down a whole section of fence low enough that she could jump it. There's the jumping mule, and she would jump out and then go home, jump back in, and be there with the horses like a good girl. Now, the horses didn't jump out because they're not as smart as the mule. The mule she was definitely a little wily. Like electric fence. She just went to the handle where it was insulated, unhooked it, and let everybody out. I mean, it was constantly a struggle. She was like an escape artist.
Good grief. Can you imagine having like dogs or cats like that?
Oh yeah, no, thank God. No, I haven't had anybody that's been as wily as that mule. You really had to think about what you were doing. And then see where she would find her way to undo it. She belly crawled under. I had a wire, to keep them separate. She would belly crawl under and then stand up on the other side. Now, the horses didn't do that because they don't have the hips to do that. They don't have the ability. So like I have them separated. She's over here by herself, so she doesn't kick these expensive Arab horses that were on the other side of the pasture that I was holding for a friend of mine. And I came back and she was in with the Arabs and she was just, I'm in with the Arabs.
Oh gosh.
So yeah, she was something else. But yeah, she lived a good long time. They do, and they're supposed to be, really, really workhorses, really workhorses, better than a horse. They don't get diseases and things. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know in Ireland we have the, the donkeys and that. It's a little different than a mule, but it's still, they're very, they would always use them years and years ago. And in Mexico, South America, definitely. They're used to haul things but they're smart. And they're stubborn. And when they want to stop, they stop. Nothing will move them.
That's true. And I will attest to that, having been, because, as you can tell, my mother didn't keep the mule her gift. She, gave it to me.
Handed it on to you, right?
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. So with your dad being a veterinarian, did you find that your family was more into getting dogs or cats? Or even now, I know you're very animal fluid, shall I say?
Yeah. We kind of mostly dogs, because that just seemed to be what would come in. And it was interesting, like the purebred dog JD that we had, after they couldn't sell him. They couldn't not knowingly give him to somebody with a heart murmur. So that was kind of how we got everybody. It was like, oh, there's something wrong with it that required expensive care for their lifetime. So we would end up, they were always sort of like, peg leg or something. It's like always something, but you loved them just the same.
Right.
Like just, no ear, because somebody chewed it off. And so it was always something like that, but mostly dogs. And then it was interesting. When I was a kid, I was very allergic to cats. So we would have outside cats, and my dad had a color that we could only have kittens because he had so many loads of kittens coming through, so that I wasn't always like kittens. So adopting them or dragging them home with me, which I was wont to do when I was a little kid. I was always finding cats. They had to be the orange color. We couldn't keep them.
Tabby.
Yeah, we couldn't keep them unless they were that orange or peach color. And so that kind of limited our adoption of cats. But then once we had the farm upstate near the Blue Mountains in Pennsylvania, when you have a farm, people drop them off and figure you want them.
Oh, wow.
Or something.
They multiply though.
Yeah. And so at one point I had 18 cats that got dropped off.
Wow.
And thank God my dad was a vet, because 18 cats had to be neutered, 18 cats had to be fed, 18 cats had to have shots. It was a lot.
Well, hence my reasoning for bringing you on again, because I knew you had this quite a large story around animals. So tell me about your journey with now today with your animals.
Right now, my latest ad is chickens. Now my dad had chickens as a kid, and we had chickens. We had those little banny hens that laid a little tiny colored eggs. So like you had to use like 6 to make enough to eat. They were tiny, but they were blue and green. We had those on the farm as I was growing up, but I was never responsible for them. I just had to pick up the eggs every day so that we didn't hatch, because we had roosters. So I didn't have anybody hatch or be giving eggs to people that actually had a little chicken in it. That people when they're expecting a little yellow yolk are not happy with a little tiny.
I wouldn't think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was my experience. I just had to pick up the eggs. That's all I had to do. I wasn't responsible because I was too young to be doing it for watering them and feeding them. So I've decided that I wanted to have raised chickens like half of the United States at this point. And I went and I ordered them. I bought them at the mill. I went and I got all my special food, and it's soy free and corn free and blah, 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 and they're medicated water for electrolytes. I mean, it's been a very big learning curve, because I just remember my dad throwing grain out and watering them. I don't remember like all the other special stuff.
And this is like a major science.
Yeah, this has been, it's been a bit of an in-depth study for me. You get them when they're like 2 or 3 days old. So they're very young, and they haven't had anything to drink or eat yet, because they can support themselves for about 3 days without any of that. Anyway, so I've been learning about chickens, and one of the things that is they're very fragile in that chick state. I think people get chicks for kids at Easter and they die, and boy,
Well,
are they fragile. I mean, I am doing everything I've read or heard or know to do, and I still have lost 2. And there's this thing called what do they call it? Slimy butt. What is it called? Mush butt. I'll call it sticky butt. Sticky butt, where their poop sticks and then it kills them. So you got to sit there with a Q-tip that's wet and this little tiny thing, and you're clearing their butt to make them live. Because if you don't, they're going to die, and I don't want that to happen. So so it's been. So I had 12. I started with 14, and now I have 12, and hopefully I'll get them up. I'll do better with the maintenance, but it's been, I love them, even though I hardly know them. I've only had them 10 days or something, but they each have a little personality. They are a bit of work, but not too much. As babies, they're pretty easy. I just have them in those plastic totes you have for.
We'll post some photos of it, but yes.
Yeah. I have them in that with a screen over the top, and and my water and the food and everything. And they're in there, and they have their little brooder warmer. So they sit in their warmer, and at night, they all get quiet and nap. They brood, and they get quiet. But most of the time, like right now, and they're in my bathroom off of here. That's where I have them housed, and they are in there chirping away. I can hear them.
Now, how long will you have to keep them in the container? When do they get to go out to the coop?
Well, if we would have a warm, like spring day, I have a child's playpen that I will go outside and set up. I have it, and a small one, and I can take them out and put them in the grass, and they can all run around and see like worms and bugs and things, and then bring them in when it gets colder at night, because right now they're very temperature sensitive. And then so I'd say maybe if we'd have a warm day, maybe 2 weeks, 3 weeks, maybe I'll be able to start doing that. And then in that same time frame, they're going to be getting too big for my little Tupperware that I have, my little Flex, and I don't remember what it's called, but it's clear plastic with a plastic lid that you put things in, and I'll have to put them in another kind of playpen in the house. So they're in the house for 8 weeks solid.
Oh my goodness.
So
wow.
It's going to get a little gamey in here, but I change their bedding twice a day, sometimes 3 times a day if they've been messy. But the more they eat, and the more they expel.
Machines.
Yeah. So they're just eating machines. And then meanwhile, I got a new adoptee. I've got a Persian cat, like this super pedigree Persian that was at my dad's office that got left because the bill for what he had was so high that the owner just said, have him, or whatever you want to do. I'm not paying, it's too much. And it took 8 months of care to bring him around. So
wow.
I don't know how many people could afford that bill that was 8 months of in office care.
That's astronomical.
It would have been astronomical. I don't know how much it is a day. I went to college on that, but I don't know.
Well, you grew up with it.
That's right.
You knew that. Yeah.
So he gave me this. One of my cats had just died, but she was 20. So I don't really think I can expect her to pull it through. But she was pink, and then I was crying about that. And then I said, well, I have this Persian I've had, who I've been keeping, alive. And but he's a little stunted. So he's supposed to be 12 pounds. He's only 6.
Oh, wow.
And so I was like, oh, I'll take that. Is it a kitten? And he goes, oh yeah, it's a kitten. He always tells me it's a kitten. Oh yeah, it's a kitten. It was 10 months old. It's not a kitten. It's a cat. But his demeanor is
like a kitten. Yeah.
Because he's been in a cage his whole life. So he is into everything.
So can I ask you, speaking of getting into everything, how about the chicks?
Well,
are they safe with, like you're talking about?
No, he would eat
playpen. Yeah, I wouldn't. Cats like
he
birds.
would eat them. So that's why we are This is my ground floor of my house, like my walkout basement where I am. So I have a bathroom down here. So they're in that bathroom. And he has not been down here at all. So he sort of doesn't really know what this is down here because he's not been down here. And I'm going to keep it that way until I get these chicks out of here. But I'll probably get more chicks next spring. So I'm thinking maybe he just doesn't come down here.
Yeah. Don't
Yeah.
give them the notion that this is what, because cats are amazing. Our cat, up until recently, was able to, at night, what I would do is put the cat in the laundry room, shut the door, because that's where his litter box was or is. And I have a pad on the dryer so that you put the dryer on. He likes the heat from the dryer and it's jiggling around. He gets his own little, motorized bed. And then there's another little blanket for him to lay on if he needs it. And I keep it like really clean because it's also where laundry is done. So I'm always in there cleaning that. But that cat can actually, or had been able to jump up onto the counter and play with the doorknob, get the doorknob going and open the door.
Yeah, I know, aren't they? Oh, they're just
and then in the morning I would find like a mess somewhere, and then I would look for the cat and he'd be back in the laundry room sitting on the dryer like, I don't know, somebody must open the door. It took me years. I'm not years, but it took what felt like forever. I didn't know what was going on. So they're very, very clever and cats are wonderful. But for me, I was always a dog person, always a dog person. And the only way I ever got a cat was to, I went to a adoption, what do you call it? Where they're just loads of cats and
shelter.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And they were trying to, there are all these cats in there and we had mice. And so we already had a golden retriever and I didn't really want to necessarily bring in yet another animal. My husband was away on a business trip and I thought, well, he grew up with a cat. So maybe if I could just get one for a little while so I could get rid of the mice, because I didn't want to be spraying things around with the kids. And I just thought, I'm going to get this cat. So I went to the shelter and I'm walking through this barn in actually a city. It was a city I had to go to and that was a barn back of somebody's old home. And it was stuffed with cats, like in cages and that. So I walk in and this woman is bringing me from cage to cage to cage. And I was looking for a specific kind that kind of looked like the one that my husband grew up with. So maybe he'd have some sort of affinity towards it.
Oh, that's
so
a good idea.
he wouldn't choke me when he saw, or lose his mind when he saw the cat. But as I'm going around it was like a calico is what he grew up with. But what I did is she goes, I have one. So I went over there. She said, but it's had eye surgery. And I looked at it and it sneered at me, like that hissing sound. And then turned its back on me in the cage and lifted its tail. I was like, okay, I'm out of here. I thought, well, that's not going to work. So I'm looking at all the cages and she finally said, stop. And I was like, what? She goes, you're not going to find the cat in the cage. And I was like, oh, but I didn't get to go. No, your cat found you. So let's go and let you. And then I looked down and this cat was following me around everywhere I went. But I was so busy looking in the cages, I didn't see what was right in front of me. Yeah, it was a little man named Mello. And Mello has been a part of our lives for like 14 years. And he just looked like when he stands up, he's black and white, but he's white on the front, but he's got a black heart. Like when he puts his paws together, it looks like a heart on his chest. And I was like, and I was scared of him. I was scared of cats. The fact that I was doing this was like totally out of my comfort zone, but I wanted to the mice scared me more than the cat. I remember getting the cat home and I had a lady that would clean. She was like an organizer lady that would help me once in a while. And I knew she had cats. So I made her come to my house to teach me how to get the cat even out of the little cage the other lady had put the cat in. And that's when it was like in the laundry room and I wasn't going to let it out yet because I had to have my make sure when my husband got home, I had him go to the room and open up the door, and he was like a little shocked. We've worked through that. It's taken some time, years actually, but he loves the cat, and I do too. And I'll tell more about that as we close the show. But you know, the cats and dogs, although they're so different, their love is so deep. They just take us as we are. Even if the cats are kind of cool, like stand back and, but when you're really feeling ill or down or just, they're the ones that land in your laps.
They pick you. They pick you.
They pick, yeah.
Yeah, they pick you. They pick you, and and what they do, I've noticed over time, is when you have a large household of cats, like I had the 18, and some of them were outside feral ones that I had just, they weren't even mine. So I had all these 18 cats, but what they would do is they would timeshare me by room and by time of day. So when I was in the kitchen, I had these 3. When I was outside in the garden, I had those 4. Or all the feral ones would follow me wherever I went on the property, and they would timeshare me. And that seemed to be the equilibrium that they would have. So that there was no fighting, there was no discord at all. Well, you would think that they would, but they didn't.
Dogs do
figured out a time, like, I have her for this time, and I'm in this room, and you cannot be in the bed because that's my time. And they figured it all out. I just was moving through the time and space, and they worked it out amongst themselves. So I had love time with all 18, depending on what I was doing.
Grief. I don't know. God bless you. I could not take that many. If they're all outside, like one cat inside for me has been.
They came in and out. Not the outside. The feral ones didn't. They were barn cats, and they were taking care of the mice and the things that are in barns. But then there were ones that were in the house that came in and out, and then there was one that never. And his name was Forbes, who never goes outside. Yeah, he was just that his space was in the house, but the other ones used to come and go, and I could call them all in. Yeah,
as I say, dogs don't timeshare. They're like all in on it. All right, boom, yeah. They're all in on it. And
they're little needy Nellies, but they also are like right with you all the time,
which is so amazing.
Yeah, it is
so wonderful.
So yeah, and you were talking about when you lose them, and I had an interesting thing, because Lady Huffington, I took her to a vet up here one time.
She's a cat.
She's a cat. I took her to a vet, and she was so fat, and I was feeding her all the special diet, and I know what to do when that happens. And she just got fatter and fatter and fatter. She was like this. My dad's like, that cat's fat, and I was like, I know, but she's on this special diet for Ash, so she doesn't get a urinary thing. And anyway, she just got fatter and fatter. She was always very needy, but that was because she was trapped inside of a wall. We had to tear a wall down in our barn to get her. The kitten nest got her. The mother got hit on the road. I never knew this cat. It was just somebody dropped it off, and it had its litter right in my barn wall. And we had to tear the wall down and get her out. And then I carried her in my against my heart. She was so tiny, and I bottle fed her and everything. I thought she was going to be so cute. She had little violet eyes, and then she turned out to be such a hellion. She'd smack me, she'd pounce on me, trying to show me that she could rip my Achilles tendon out anytime she wanted. And I was like, this cat is just like so ungrateful. But she became like I never realized she just ended up being the bane of my existence, but also so sweet. She never broke my skin. She never clawed me. She never did anything, but she said I could if I wanted. I could fell you like a tree, and I'm going to show you. So she sabotage, she'd jump out, guerrilla warfare, grab me by the Achilles tendon, and then be like, see, I could have just, you could have fell over. So anyway, she just passed after 20 years. So I had her for 20 years. That's a pretty good long time for a cat.
Yeah.
And I would be down here in the walkout basement part, and after her spirit left her body, she was buried out in the yard, I could hear her running around up above me. And she was like 20 pounds. She was a big cat. And it sounded, it was on like there was a, a stampede.
Thunder,
going.
thunder.
And she didn't have that kind of mobility near the end, but her spirit was running around in the house. And then my dad gave me this adopted Persian who went upstairs, who was living in the house. And as soon as he came, that stopped. But then he started doing the things that she had always done. And now he's
The bane
he's
of
doing
your
guerrilla
existence.
warfare too. And he's doing all the things she used to do. He plays with her toys. He went into the toy box for the dog where some of the cat toys have fallen and dug them all out, the ones that she liked the best, the place that she liked to be the best, the places where her like unique places. She eats with the dog, or he eats with the dog. She used to, and the dog would growl at her and still growls at the new Persian, but he does the exact same thing. And so I have always felt that when you have animals, their spirit kind of stays around you. And in the Taoist philosophy, that's true. You have a soul group around which your animals will, the constellation of all of your animals you've ever had will all stay close to your soul group. So all you have to do is give them a chance to join you. So adopting a cat, even if it's not related to your cat, will bring that piece of that soul into your world. So he is, I mean, he's as different as he could be from her. She was a barn cat. He's a purebred whoop-de-doo Persian something from Russia, no less. And he's totally her. I mean, like fragments of her spirit, of what she used to do, he does. And he never knew her. And the running around upstairs stopped.
Wow.
Now there's something running around up there right now, but it's him.
That is so cool. I think that we are all connected. We're all connected to the Christ consciousness. We're all connected to, we're a part, the animals are a part of us, as are the plants that grow outside, the things we're all connected. Everything is a part of us, and we are a part of it in so many ways. And as we were talking about my cat Mellow moment, a few moments ago, I have to, he's going to be put down tomorrow. And by the time the show airs, he will be in spirit world, and hopefully, I will feel him around. And it's, I'm very sad, and I've had my tears, a lot of tears. And it's so funny because when I think about, the animals at times, I go, well, it's not like you losing a human. I mean, there's just so many other, emotions and energies attached to humans, but no, it's different, but it's so necessary to have and feel those emotions. And I am very sad, and I'm trying to keep it together as I do this, but I don't want to see him suffer. And I've struggled with holding on now for like 4 months, and it gets to be to a point where it's just not good for your pet, and it's not good for you. It's not good for your family. And as a friend of mine said, when she took her dog to the vet, and the dog, and she struggled with putting the dog down, and anytime she'd see her dog try to hide to actually let go, she would be there to, no, you're not going, you're staying, whatever.
Yep.
And so she took the dog in, and they're ready to go to put the dog down. And she asked the vet, or maybe this was over the phone, but she said, when do you know, when should I, like put him down? Because, I just don't know when. And the vet said 4 months ago. It's not good to drag this out. The poor animal needs to be set free. Now, I feel so differently about humans in that way. I feel that's a God divine experience. our timing of when we come and go, but we can also help to guide ourselves in that direction by not doing certain medications and that. But with an animal, why are we making them suffer? So yeah, that's kind of the way.
It feels kind of selfish. I've had death because I've had so many animals. Of course I have, had a lot of things happen, and sometimes they want to do it themselves, and they don't want the help, and you can feel it. Like Lady Huffington, she was only sick for 4 days. She was fine, and then 4 days she just declined so fast, it was crazy. And she had kidney failure, and it just boom, it was done. And I tried to help her transition because I can know how to do that because of my own practices. And she kicked me so hard with her back legs, like she could barely walk, and she like kicked
Get
me
out of here. Yeah.
Yeah,
let
she's
me
like,
do my
I
own.
want to do it. And I had the same thing happen with a golden retriever. I tried to help her, and I saw her spirit peeling out, like it was going, and she kicked me also. Their back legs, like she just bunny kicked me really hard.
Mhm.
And I was like, okay. I'll, but it's always so hard. It's hard when they disappear to go die, because then you're looking for them, every day for months and years. You think you might see them. It's never easy, but the bottom line is that you can sort of feel their decision to choose it themselves. You can feel it. Just listen with your heart. Do they want you to help them? Look in their eyes. Do they want you to help them, or do they need you to? Because sometimes they want to be away from you. They don't want you to see it, and sometimes they do.
Well, and humans do that also. And
Yeah.
as we close, it's so it's so brilliant to have the family, anyone who's been around the pet, who's has a connection to it, to be able to say their goodbyes in their way, or to be able to come to terms with why this is showing up, and why this is happening, because all it is the cycle. It's a cycle of life.
Yep.
And their lives are meant to be celebrated, like our lives are meant to be celebrated. As we exit, we come, we go, we come, we go, and it's just this rotation of energy. And
Exactly. And what the interesting thing, nature gives you, usually there is going to be, right before they die, they look like they're getting better. They have more energy. They look like they're getting better. That's when you do your thing you tell them you love them. You show up for them. Maybe they have their last little meal that they can eat because they can't eat anymore. They drink even for you. You're like, oh, maybe it's gonna be okay. But it's always this little flash of more energy, more life. It gives you time to make your peace with the transition that's coming. And then that really neat part is, as I found with all the cats and dogs I've had in my life, I mean, gosh, I've been so lucky to have so many souls in my little soul group that are staying attached to me. Like they're around me all the time. That when one passes, whatever I bring in, the next thing I bring in, some of that soul has attached to the new animal.
That energy, yeah.
And so it's not an end. And this is what the Taoists believe. It's not an end. It's like another lifetime gets to be lived. And so they want to stay with my soul, and they do. And I think that's an amazing gift, because I have known so many sweet little hearts, little fuzzy hearts.
Yeah. Families.
Yeah, Firmalies, yeah. And a mule. I don't know if she counts as a Firmaly. She was a one-man band.
I love it. Well, Glenys, thank you once again so much for joining me. You're always such a joy. I love your energy and your stories and all your knowledge. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Just Glenys, JUSTGLENYS.com is my main website. So you can reach me there.
Fabulous. So thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And if we can all just close your eyes for a moment, not while you're driving, and just take a big deep breath in and hold it for a moment and release. And know that you're not alone. You're on the Family Balancing Act.